Jason Rigby, ABQ Business Podcast. Today we're going to get into a little bit of history, what I love. One of the things that I love to study, and I learn so much when I delve into it, and I encourage each of you, before I give you my area of expertise that I love to read about and learn, I've called myself an expert in this, but there's tremendous amounts of authors, and I have 100 or more books of World War II. And it's just interesting to see how the world acted and how leaders all across the world in so many different scenarios acted. And I can learn from that. And you need to find your best interest in history, whether maybe it's the pyramids in Egypt, or maybe it's the Mayan culture, maybe it's what happened in World War I, maybe it is the French Revolution. Whatever it is that you're interested in, the beginning of America, the Civil War, whatever it may be, find that and then just dive into it. You're going to learn so much. The characters that play out, the people, and these are real life people that are going to make tremendous amounts of mistakes. They're going to do amazing things at the same time. You know, and this is something that we need to learn. We need to learn from history. This may be controversial, but I don't think we need to cancel history. We need to learn from history. Super important. Just deleting it doesn't help anyone. Bringing it out and us learning and understanding it, seeing the mistakes that people made, will help us prevent us from making those mistakes. Because our consciousness and our self-awareness becomes alive based off of looking at that and seeing. We get to see what happens when somebody can make a small little mistake, and then next thing you know, it causes tens of thousands of lives to be destroyed. Just off of one small decision. So we get to see that play out in real time. It's kind of almost like a cheat sheet when you dive into it and say, oh, here's a leader. Here's a decision he made. Oh, wow, that was amazing. This is what happened with that decision. Oh, no, look at this. This is horrific. And that's why history is so important when it comes to leadership. So I want to share a World War II story. I think this is really cool. The year was 1942. World War II was at its peak. So researchers at the Center for Naval Analysis, they were faced with a huge problem. The bombers that were coming back that didn't get shot down, a lot of them got shot down. You should read about that. It's crazy. The odds of survival as a human being on a bomber was almost nil. But the ones that didn't get shot down, after they did these runs over Germany and bombed factories and cities, they would come back, but even the ones that came back would be riddled with bullet holes. So the researchers' task was improving the odds of a plane surviving. We've got to build these odds up. What can we do? There has to be something that we can do when we do these bombing runs that we can get the plane to survive. So guess what they did? They began to collect tons of data. One thing they found was, let's add armor onto the plane. Now you think that would be simple. But it's not, because if you add too much armor, it's not going to be able to maneuver correctly, and it's going to be too heavy. And that can make them even more vulnerable. Can't carry that big of a payload, aren't going to have that many bombs, can't maneuver as well as you need to. You're going to have missed targets. So just adding a ton of weight and armor on it is not going to help it. So we need to be very specific. We need to understand, collect the data from the planes that are coming back, and find out where we can put the armor. Well, that's what they began to do. And you can go online and look this up. It's really cool. They have analyzation of bullet holes. And you can see all the data that they were collecting, and they were analyzing each of the bullet holes. And then they made a plane, black and white plane. They made a plane. I'll put the link in the show notes. And then they kind of showed this is the damage that the planes are getting. So clear picture begins to emerge. Cool. Solution simple. We're going to add armors to the areas where they were maximally getting shot at. Sound simple? There you go. But a huge flaw in the plan. Famous statistician Abraham Wald looked at the data and he saw something wrong in it. He said, you guys are only looking at the planes that come back. So actually the areas with the minimum bullet holes were the most important, since when that area got hit, it downed the plane. So get this. They thought, oh, we're just going to put armor plates on the ones. And it's so simple when we look at this, how easy that is, right? It's like, oh, shit. It's actually the opposite. We were going to put them on the areas where they're getting the most, but those are the ones that are able to fly back. So those areas really don't matter because the planes can stun back even if they're riddled with bullet holes. It's the areas that weren't riddled. Those are the areas that we need to cover the most. And then we can put some armor in those areas. And that's what they did. And it was still successful, still being used today. And you can thank Abraham Wald for that. And I encourage you to look this up. It's Abraham Wald, World War II. You can just Google that and you'll be able to read all about it. But this can help you. It's like, well, how is this bomber stuff going to help me, Jason? Very, very simple. Whenever you have a problem, something like this, where you're facing something, get your team together, get a whiteboard out, write the problem on there, get some Chipotle or something like that, sit everybody down, have a brainstorming session. You're going to come up to a conclusion like they did. Oh, here's the data. Here's where it's at. Now you need to flip it so that you get a different perspective on that. And how you can do that is this. You can say, oh, what would happen with these three scenarios that we all just created, that we think we should use this template of these three scenarios to help with our clients or whatever it may be. Let's put bullet holes, no pun intended. Let's put bullet holes in those now. Let's look at these three things that we've created just now. We spent 30 minutes to create these three. Let's, for the next 10 or 15 minutes, see what problems we can find in these three. Oh, that's not going to work for this client. And you're going to have to wait a few minutes for someone to speak because this is a harder thought process. But somebody's going to come up and they're going to be like, well, you know what? I think this wouldn't work with this client. Oh, I see. Well, what percentage of clients would it not work with? Well, probably about 40%. But the 60%, well, should we put effort in changing this and this to help the 60%? See, this is where it's important that you just ask questions. You don't give your opinion. You facilitate a conversation. That's all you need to do. You stand at the whiteboard and write things down and facilitate that conversation. It's going to be amazing. You're going to have this. You guys are going to come up with new things that's going to be able to help you. And I encourage you to do that. It's a great exercise to do with your team. Don't solve all your problems. Let your team help you with it. You will come up with new, creative, amazing ideas. And like we see here in World War II, they're still using this today, this amazing idea that Abraham Wald came up with.
Thank you for joining us on the Albuquerque Business Podcast. And thanks to our sponsor, RigbyDigital.com. Make sure to subscribe and share. And go to abqpodcast.com. Get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur and business owner.